Hey X, I'm repetitively new to you. I've lurked for a little while. Looking at your spooky stories, and some of the more unrealistic stories, but I thought it was finally time to post my own. It going to be a bit of a ramble, and sorry about the writing structure, it still scares me to the day, and I almost had a panic attack telling my GF about it. I'm hopeful in the fact that one of you could tell me what it was that I saw, but it's very likely you won't believe me, since I was at such a young age. Anyway, I'm not going to green text this, because I don't know how detailed I'm going to get into this story, but I've only ever told my girlfriend who's had some paranormal stuff happen to her, and even she was terrified. Now, I was born in the UK, and I currently live overseas. This was in 1999 when I was 6 or 7 years old, so pretty young, but still able to comprehend what was happening, and what I was seeing. Anyway, we had just moved into our new house, and for the first few nights, nothing happened. My new room was pretty cool, a big bed that I had to climb a small ladder up, that almost reached the roof, that had a space under that could put my clothes in, and a small table so I could paint my Warhammer figurines. I didn't know how to play the game. Just thought they looked cool. And if any of you saw how I painted them, you would throw up. The room was pretty big for a UK house. Normally they are all packed in, but this house was cheap, and big for the size we paid for it. And in hindsight, I can see why it was so cheap. Anyway, one night I'm laying in bed, reading a book, about to go to sleep, when I look over to my door, and I catch the slightest glimpse of a figure. I thought it was my mum checking up on me. It was about 8 or 9 p.m. and I should have really been getting ready to sleep, but I was pretty independent in getting myself into bed and sleeping on time. I thought nothing of it at the time, went to sleep. Shit was still pretty normal at this point. Fast forward a few weeks, and every now and again I keep seeing this figure's shadow, quickly disappearing just as I look up, or away from, say, the TV. Or one time I specifically remember eating dinner, everyone is at the table, I look up and see a shadow standing in the hall for a few seconds, and then, it like shimmered and flitted away around the corner. It's so hard to describe, but it like shimmered and then vanished. The story is just getting good. A few nights later, I'm laying in bed, I'm not really concerned about what I'm seeing. I was young at the time, and had no concept of paranormal or ghosts. Anyway, laying in bed reading, about to go to sleep, when I look up from my book and I see a face, peering at me from around my door. Its face, just staring. It's pretty high up. Now at 24 I can say he was around 6'2", 6'4". The tallest man I had ever seen at that time. I'm actually shaking as I type this. Fucking hell. The face is distorted. It's the only way I can describe it. It looks like I'm looking at it in a mirror from a carnival, those mirrors that stretch, and make you look fat. It stays standing, looking at me for a solid 10 seconds, both of us locking eyes. I'm frozen in bed, having a fucking heart attack and not wanting to take my eyes off him. It felt like it lasted forever, but eventually I blinked, and he had vanished. Like that, gone. Poof. I rocketed out of the bed and ran straight into my parents' room. I didn't tell them what I had saw, because at the time I had no idea, and in my stupid kid mind, I didn't want to panic them. I fell asleep after some time but woke up in their bed. At the time, I was confused, thinking, did I actually see that? Was it a dream? And if it was a dream, why did I wake up in my parents' room? Fast forward a few more days, possibly a week, it's in the back of my mind now. You know, I'm a kid, I've got stupid shit to deal with, completely pointless and minuscule looking back on it now. Back in my room, it's about 4 p.m, I used to walk home from school, it was only 5 minutes away, and in the UK you cow literally everyone on the street so it's completely safe, and you'd walk home with your friends who'd live 1 or 2 doors up, or around a bend. Anyway, home alone, completely home alone. Upstairs, playing Pokemon on my GBA, when I hear a noise coming from the downstairs hallway, thinking it was my brother, also coming from school. He's a few years older, so he goes to another school further away. I leave my room and stand at the top of the stairs, and look down. Nothing, nobody is there. I'm confused, and I turn around to walk back into my room. When I hear a creak at the stairs, I turn around and nobody. I turn again, another creak. At this point I'm scared and I bolt into my room, and then stomp, 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 all the way up the stairs. It sounded like steel-toe cap boots crashing all the way up. I panic, and push this flimsy fucking chair I had in front of the door. Not even under the handle that was a fucking knob, so it wouldn't have done anything anyways. The door doesn't move, no more noise. I stand in panic waiting for my door to burst open, but nothing happens. A few minutes later my brother gets home, and my mom, 40 or so. Dad an hour-ish later. I don't tell any of them, but I no longer sleep in my own room. I slept in my brother's room after that until I moved out. I convinced him, we can use my room as a games room. Days later. Nothing has happened, but I'm starting to get weird feelings around the house. Like, at times the house will feel completely normal, exactly how you are now, sitting down reading this, but at other times the room, it's like it slows down, the room gets cold but nobody else feels it. A week or so later, I see the face again, out the corner of my eye, when I was walking down the stairs, past the computer room on the left. He's standing just inside the doorway, but his face was completely clear. And the name that came to my head instantly was, the drowned man. I have no idea why. I had never even seen a drowned man at that point in my life, and still to this day I can't figure out why it's the name I gave him. But it's the name that came clear, screaming into my mind. Over the next couple of weeks, I keep seeing him. He's not bothering me, and nobody else has seemed to notice he is around. 4 days he'll be gone, then he'll suddenly pop up as I'm walking around the house, or I'll see him standing in the doorway to a room, peeking at me. I'm no longer terrified of him, just scared when he shows up. He's just around. Stuff from the house will randomly show up in other rooms, like spoons in the bathroom, or books misplaced, nothing serious, like actual valuables, just random fucking tat. I never tried to speak to him, out of fear. I never tried to prove to anyone else he was real. I've no idea why. Even now, I think if I did something bad would have happened, something screaming inside my mind even today tells me it was the right choice. The last time I saw him, it was late, it was the weekend and my dad had gone out to the pub with mum and it was just me and my brother at home. I was upstairs watching Red Dwarf on DVD, I went downstairs to get a drink. Suddenly I get an ice cold chill, like you just opened the door to a freezer, and I saw him. Standing in the middle of the hallway, between me and the kitchen. He was stretched, like his body had been broken, and his skin flayed. I stood and watched him while he looked like he was in pure agony before I literally pissed my pants and ran back upstairs. That was the last time I saw the drowned man. We moved out a few weeks later and only recently I brought up the courage to ask my family why. Apparently they had also experienced some strange stuff around the house, and my brother said it was haunted as fuck, but I've never asked him about it. He never hurt me, never actually interacted with me outside of the horrifying stairs. As for proof, I've got none. Maybe this will just be another story on X, or maybe someone will actually let me know what the fuck was it that I saw. I could post the address, but I don't want this traced back to me somehow. B25. Living alone in a kinda shitty house in a bad neighborhood because can't afford anything better and won't live with roommates. Wake up close to 4 a.m. Hear a woman screaming outside. Look out window, see nothing. Screaming quiets, hear the faint sound of wood scraping across pavement. Think maybe some girl is getting raped out there. Grab a golf club I keep in my room for protection and a flashlight. Go outside. Anybody out here? Walk around backyard, see nothing. Still hear faint noise of wood scraping. Walk back to front yard. See something in the shadows near my neighbor's patio. Shine my light on it. What the fuck? It's a nude black woman's torso with freakishly long arms facing away from me. Long dirty hair, about 4 feet tall. Look down. Her lower body is some kind of flat-bottomed wooden thing, like she has a boat for legs. She turns her head toward me. Her eyes are empty sockets, she has no nose. Run the fuck back inside. Hear her scream at me, ear rapingly shrill. Call the cops, tell them there's a crazy woman outside my neighbor's house, leave out the part about her having a boat thing for legs. Dispatcher man tells me cops will be there to investigate, they never show up because bad part of town and they have better things to do. Stay up all night with golf club in hand wishing I owned a gun. Hear wooden scraping for about an hour later, stops close to dawn. Ask neighbor about it next day, he gets really anxious and sweaty, denies knowing what I'm talking about. There was no fucking way he didn't see it. I think maybe he saw it too but was so freaked out he doesn't want to believe it. Working at a convenience store, a few miles from the city limits. Near the highway, but still pretty urban. You get the idea. Graveyard shift, 2 a.m. Only the crazies come out this late. After not getting any customers for my whole shift, a beat-up minivan rolls into the parking lot. Out steps, and I shit you not, the biggest drag queen I have ever seen. Dude, or it has to be at least 6'6", maybe taller but scrawny as a scarecrow. Looking at him walk was unnerving itself, but then he comes in. This guy was not fooling anyone, he made Caitlyn Jenner pass for cover girl. Too much makeup that looked clownish, dress that was too tight, feet the size of dinner plates crammed into sandals and a bulge that was practically doing the Wilhelm scream in his pants. This Stephen King creation is lumbering around, hunched over pawing through stuff but is way too obviously looking me up and down. We got a .357 revolver and a blackjack under the counter, but airplanes were needed to take down Kong. He lumbers out back to his minivan and talks to somebody in the driver's seat, then daddy long legs his way back in. Starts buying random things that have no relation to each other, a toolbox, a jug of water, a radio, all heavy stuff he's clearly struggling with. Pays for it all, asks if he could get some help bringing it out to the van. Say no, I can't leave the counter. Aw. Come on, please. It'll just take a minute. Nope. Well, the service here is just shit, I'd like to speak to somebody in charge. Call the store number, I don't give a fuck. Watch him struggle with all the heavy shit, and walk out into the night. Soon after I hear the van pull out and see its lights out the store window. 10 minutes of silence, when I hear a tapping on the window which is adjacent to the counter. It's the same guy, peering in and smiling like the fucking Joker. Literally fall out of my chair. Oh sweetheart, I didn't mean to scare you, but my friend just left for an emergency and I had to stay here, could you come out so I feel safer? Grab the blackjack, tell him to get the fuck out of here or I'm going to run him over with my car. His face gets super close to the window, I see him breathing on it. It's like a transvestite Jurassic Park. He gives me the very definition of a death stare for a solid 15 seconds. Then in a very masculine, clear tone says, "You're gonna die tonight." Punches the window and walks away. Spend the rest of the night drowning in coffee and chain smoking cigarettes, looking over my shoulder with the gun and blackjack near me until dawn. Dawn comes, I go out to my car. All the shit he bought is in a pile to the side of the store, like he never needed it and discarded it. Tell my friend who works at a Dunkin' Donuts a mile up the road about it, he worked that night too by pure coincidence. Says around that same time a minivan came in his parking lot, parked, waited for a half hour without the driver getting out of the car and then headed back in the direction it came from. I have a short one that is relevant to a lot of the stories which are going around. This is copy-pasted from the other thread but I'm finishing it here. B. Butterbar Platoon Leader for CAV Platoon. B. At National Training Center at Fort Benning. B. In a Woods for Fire Training Exercise, FTX. The FTX is about 4 days long and involves a lot of land navigation shit, patrol bases, etc. So far has been pretty boring. At about 1800 on third day get a call from the company commander over the radio. He's pulling the platoon leaders in to talk to us. Show up at company TOC, basically coast truck, a camp stove, and pallets of MREs. Wait forever for company commander to show up. Finally shows up at 8:45 and tells me and the rest of the platoon leaders that there's been reports of a really big, aggressive bear that's been following groups around at the NTC. If it shows up, fire shots to scare it off, don't bury your trash, etc. I don't think much of it at the time, just think we got all our time wasted for no reason. Sends us off to head back to our PLTs on our own. Cloudy, so it's pretty much pitch dark out, kind of creepy naving back by myself, but I'm in full warrior mode, so do it without thinking. Up for patrolling, so leave my flashlight off. Following trail back to rendezvous point with my platoon where they were supposed to have set up a patrol base. See headlights off in the distance on the trail, get off the trail and hide. Watch the Humvee pass by, looks just like range control or something. See its lights fall on something huge across the road for an instant before the Humvee rolls on. Tactically shit pants for a second, sit in utter silence for a few minutes thinking it might be a bear. Nothing, no movement. After a while realize I'm probably just being a tard and get back on the trail to keep going. Nothing more out of the ordinary happens, get to around the point where the PB should be and notice a chain of chem lights heading off into the woods as well as a parked Humvee. Head into woods, following chem light chain. Go to the end of the chem light chain. Someone calls out the challenge. When you set up a patrol base, if you see someone you call out a challenge phrase and they answer back with the password, it means they're friendly. I don't remember what the password was, so just say it's fucking Lieutenant Anon. Guy just goes, whatever, and lets me by. I get to the center of the patrol base and link up with my platoon sergeant. About an hour goes by. Feel weirdly tense. Can't sleep. Suddenly shouting from one side of the patrol base, immediately followed by hail of blank fire as whole squad lights up an area. Grab my rifle and run over shouting for a status from the squad leader. No response yet. No one moving or talking. Run up to one of the sentries and ask what the hell happened. He said he saw someone moving about 10 meters away from their position and called out the challenge. He said they heard someone say it's fucking Lieutenant Anon, so they were going to let him through. Guy says the thing suddenly got close and he had this feeling something was wrong. Sees that this person walking into the base has long hair and just starts shooting. Whole squad started shooting. You've ever shot blanks at night, you know it blinds you for a few seconds during and afterward. When the guy can see again, the guy he saw was gone. WTF for a bit, but say okay and head back to the center of the patrol base. Much later. Talk to the platoon sergeant and RTO, make sure they're okay. And go to sleep for a bit. Woken up by another hail of blank fire. Figure this time we're getting probed by a 4. Grab rifle and run to the side of the PB where the fire came from. I get there, almost no one moving or talking, ask WTF is going on. Team leader says he saw someone a little bit down the hill they were watching, so he issued challenge. Guy calls back, it's fucking Lieutenant Anon, while he's walking toward the PB. Team leader asks what the hell I'm doing out there. Voice calls back, it's fucking Lieutenant Anon. Team leader WTFs. Team leader says something way taller than a normal man comes out of the brush, He tactically shits his pants and just starts lighting it up. Again, guy is gone when he can see clearly again where it was. Think this is kinda fucked up for S.T.A.L.K.E.R to be playing head games with us like this. I go back to the center of the PE and try to get to sleep again. Sorry this part took so long, the other 4 were from the old thread. This time I sleep for maybe 15 minutes before I'm woken up by for real S.T.A.L.K.E.R, big gun battle going on. Jump to my feet, actually happy shit's hitting the fan for real. Conductor react to contact, drive S.T.A.L.K.E.R off, lane walker starts popping RD sims. SLs, PSG, RTO start executing according to our plan we set up to move PBs. We move about a click and set up the ORP, then move into the new PB. Walking around checking positions and making sure SLs are accounting for people. Good accountability with 3 SLs, go to talk to the last one. Last SL comes up to me just shitting bricks. I ask if he's missing anyone or any gear. He says he counted twice and each time counted an extra person. When he went back to ask if the guy was in the wrong squad, he wasn't there anymore. What? Pull SLs in. Ask them if they were missing and Anna or had anyone extra. Nothing wrong with anyone else. Figure it's just a screw up with accountability. After an hour it's okay to return to normal sleep rotations. Make plans with platoon sergeant, SLs. I go to sleep. Woken up about an hour later by SL who's SOG for the time period. He tells me I need to come talk to some guy who's freaking out. Go over to where the platoon sergeant is, he's with some Joe who's freaking out. Ask him what the hell happened. Said he was on the line with team leader who I'd talked to before. Got up to go out a bit to take a piss. Mid-piss he looks over to his left down a short hill. Sees someone walking down there. Mumbles to himself, oh shit. Person down there fucking cackles, his words, and he nearly pisses all over himself grabbing his rifle. He says it looked like it was made of sticks, his words, and ran like a speed skater, his words again, toward him. Cackled something like, Lieutenant Anon while it ran up the hill. FW. Guy runs for his life back to the PB and will not go back out on the line. He demands we bring the whole platoon back to the TOC. We eventually talk him down. Things quiet down. Last incident of the night thankfully. I talked to the lane walker about it while no one else was around and he just said he believed the dude and that a lot of weird shit lives in the GA swamps. I guess it's kind of a crappy ending, but to this day I am not sure what the fuck might have happened. These stories reminded me of it. At the time I thought it was just hallucinations plus S.T.A.L.K.E.R, but now I'm not so sure. This started when I was a little kid, so my memory's a little spotty now, but I remember most of it. B5 or so. Family's first dog, a yellow lab named Max. Died recently. He was extremely friendly and was always careful around me and my little brother. Get up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom right across the hallway. Dark as shit, but there's a night light a little past the bathroom. Further down the hall there's a corner with the door to the basement just around it. Halfway to the bathroom I hear a dog panting happily and climbing up the stairs. I stop and look down the hallway and wait. Eventually I see a dog come around the corner. With the night light I can just barely make out the basic features such as shape and the color of the fur. It looks exactly like Max. I just stand there watching it, not fully comprehending what I'm looking at since I was a dinosaur nut back then and barely knew anything about ghosts. It just stand there watching me and panting happily. Eventually I turn on the lights to get a better look and it disappears while I'm looking away. I go to the bathroom and go to sleep. My parents told me it was just a dream. When I told them about it, but I know I was awake. This continues for the next month or so, each time it comes from the basement and stops closer and closer to me. I never mentioned it to my parents again since they wouldn't believe me. After a month it's getting really close to the nightlight and just sit and wait since it walks slowly and methodically. As it comes closer and closer into the light its features slowly change. First, its fur becomes more messy and tangled looking. Next, it starts crouching lower to the ground. I realized later that it looked like it was sneaking up on its prey. It would then start growling and snarling, baring its fangs at me and frothing at the mouth. Eventually the eyes would turn a deep red that glowed ever so slightly. Throughout this all I would just sit there until it stopped. Each time it stopped it seemed like it was just outside of the light's reach, like there was a barrier between it and the light, which kept getting closer each night. Despite the changes I never got scared. It still looked roughly like Max, and, being the dumb little kid I was, I thought it was him. Eventually I would remember why I got up in the first place and turn on the lights. It would disappear each time while I looked away. The next night was the last time I ever let it get anywhere near me. That night it finally stepped into the light. As it passes through, its fur turn pitch black and can see it's matted down with both fresh and dry blood. Its glowing red irises expand to cover all of the visible eyes and the pupils disappear. It also begins barking angrily at me. Worst of all, it isn't stopping. At this point I finally come to my senses and quickly turn on the lights. Not taking my eyes off of it. This time it slowly fades away instead of immediately disappearing. I didn't sleep the rest of that night and never turned off the lights. Over the next several years while we lived in that house I could always feel it waiting for me, especially if I had to leave my room for any reason during the night. Each time I would look down the hallway while I reached behind me to turn the lights on. Sometimes I couldn't see it but could still hear it panting. Most nights I could see it waiting for me at the end of the hall, panting happily, looking and sounding just like Max. I never said a single thing to anyone about it. To this day I don't quite know why, I just felt it would be futile. After we moved several years later when I was 12. I stopped seeing it, but I could still sometimes hear it, and I always felt it waiting for me just around the corner and in the dark. It has mostly stopped now, but I still sometimes feel it waiting for me and have still kept habits that I developed after I saw it for whatever the hell it is. To this day, I can't stand being in the dark alone for long, even if I have a strong flashlight or lamp, and I can't sleep without my door and windows closed and my bed sheets completely covering me unless someone else is in the room, all in some vain, childish attempt to protect myself if it returns, or at least not see it if it does. I still haven't told anyone about this except a close friend of mine, and I can still sometimes feel it watching me. I just hope that I have one of my guns on me with ammo if it does ever come back and I can't get away. Nothing has ever terrified me more than that thing. Be me. 6 years old. Come from an extremely poor family and live in a post-communist European shithole. Christmas of 1998. Instead of a stash of presents I got news about my parents dying in a car crash. Go to sleep after crying my eyes out. Wake up in the morning. There is a single box of chocolates there. Get freaked out but eat it anyway. Fast forward to today. Going through old shit stashed in the attic while looking for something. Find a weird wooden box. A ton of family photos. Spend an hour or two looking at them. Find this one. The date written on the back is December 24th, 1998. What the actual fuck did I just find? Who took the goddamn photo? I was alone at home on that day. Pictures removed because of extreme gore. I will assume you mean me. No, I didn't come back. I was too tired when I finally got back home, so I just went to bed. Anyway, here's the story. As I said, it's not really one of those too spooky for me paranormal stories. The day before yesterday I was out walking alone in a woods in a northern Scandinavia. Suddenly realized that the ravens are making a hell of a racket fighting over something. I figure it's probably a cadaver. Since I know the landowner, I figured I should investigate and inform him if I find anything odd. So I start walking over to the approximate location of the suspected cadaver, and sure enough I see something lying on the ice of a frozen creek a bit further ahead. I start noticing puddles of blood around the cadaver in the snow, along with tracks that indicate a short but brutal struggle. I take a look at the cadaver and see it's a small roe deer. The odd thing is that it's in immaculate shape with the exception of the neck, which has been eaten. Nothing else on the cadaver shows any signs of injury, which is very odd because whatever killed this deer, it wasn't wolves or an eagle. So I kneel down next to the cadaver to have a closer look. I reach out to move its neck to get a better look at the bite marks. And that's when I realize it. It's still fucking warm. And not just lukewarm, it's fully body temperature warm. Now it's pretty cold out, about -13 degrees with a strong wind chill, so it would only have taken a short while for the cadaver to start freezing, but even the blood on the ice was still liquid. Whatever killed this thing is still around here somewhere. At this point I get really paranoid and start looking around, but I don't see anything. So I take a closer look at the bite marks on the neck. The large blood vessels and the trachea have been bitten off very cleanly. It looks like something cut them with sharp scissors. So whatever killed this deer has very sharp scissor-like teeth made for cutting through flesh efficiently. I look for tracks in the surrounding area but I can't find any that make sense. The largest paw prints I find nearby are only slightly larger than fox prints, and it certainly was not a fox that killed this deer. I don't feel like staying any longer, so I snap a few photos and GTFO. On the way back I call the landowner and tell him about it. He walked out there about 45 minutes later, but he never found the carcass. He found where it had been, and then he found drag marks. 3 fucking kilometer long drag marks that lead out and over a frozen lake he didn't want to cross. I asked him if he weighed any tracks, but he didn't see any either. Now this is really freaking me out. The only natural thing that kills like that is an Arctic lynx, but they are quite large and leave paw prints much larger than anything I could find, and they don't drag dead deer for 3 fucking kilometers in less than an hour. Here's some blood stains and shit. Looks like the deer was laying dead on the ice for a while since it has melted the snow in the ice. Then there are some drag marks. My guess is that the creature had just killed the deer and eaten a bit of it, then it started dragging it off, but it only got a few meters before I came trundling conspicuously through the woods and chased it off. Also, this creature must be very light, since it doesn't leave tracks, and it could easily walk around in ice that was far too weak to bear me. Here's a close-up on the neck.